analyzing General Johnny Luboya Nkashama's legacy as the governor of Ituri province. Hello, my name is King Solomon. Welcome to the Voice of Ituri's podcast. We are bringing Ituri's insights in diasporic perspectives. What a pleasure to have you tonight. Now, today, we are examining General Johnny Luboya Nkashama's legacy as the governor of Ituri's province. On the 5th of June 2026, the Congolese government in Kinshasa announced that they were replacing General Johnny Luboya Nkashama as the governor of Ituri province with a new military governor called Major General Kasongo Mulumba Batoka Gabi. I hope I pronounce his name correctly. Now, for those who may not be familiar with General Johnny Luboya Nkashama, he is a Congolese military officer, a lieutenant general, very powerful man, who has been at the helm of Ituri province since 2021. And now, for those who may not be familiar with Ituri province is an administrative region in northeastern the Democratic Republic of Congo, also known as the DRC. It borders Uganda to the east, South Sudan to the north, the Congolese province of Otuele to the northwest, the Congolese province of Shopo to the west, and the Congolese province of North Kivu to the south. This province is so rich in natural resources, so rich in ethnic diversity, among other things. Now, despite these immense riches and potential, it has faced, over decades, faced some of the most deadliest conflicts anywhere in Africa, in Congo, and if not in the whole of Africa. The latest one to break out was in late 2017, around December, which was, of course, characterized like the previous ones, with ethnic armed militias that were terrorizing civilians. And the government forces, Congolese government forces, were intervening to repel these armed groups. Now, after nearly 4 years of consecutive armed conflict, in 2021, the Congolese government in Kinshasa imposed a state of siege in Ituri, this and the neighboring North Kivu province, which was also facing armed conflict. The state of siege entailed replacing civilian rule with the military one. And in Ituri, the Congolese government appointed the General Johnny Luboya Nkashama, Lieutenant General Johnny Luboya Nkashama, a very powerful military figure, as the leader of that province, with the main mandate to eradicate armed groups that were ravaging the province at that time. The main one at the time being CODECO, the Cooperative for the Development of Congo, known for its French acronym, CODECO, among others, of course, but that was the powerful one. So now, almost 4 years, 5 years almost on, Ituri province is still awash with armed groups, so many of them. The province is still at war, in a very fragile state. Almost 2 million people are displaced in the interior of the province, and hundreds of thousands more in the neighboring Uganda. People's livelihoods have been ruined. You have kids begging in Bunia. You have so much, like, social cohesion has been destroyed. There is so much instability in Ituri after 4 years of state of siege. Now, after many years of people calling for Luboya's replacement, he was finally replaced this time, because throughout his mandate, you have members of civil society, journalists, political activists, politicians, MPs from Ituri, and also members of the Provincial Assembly have always been calling for his replacement, given that he didn't secure the province peace, pacify the province in a timely manner, as he should have. Now, the Congolese government finally replaced him. Now, speaking of his legacy as the governor of Ituri, it depends on who you ask, really. There are people, there are proponents of Luboya and opponents of Luboya. His opponents argue, among other things, that General Luboya Nkashama's legacy as the governor of Ituri province, can be characterized by immense, or in fact extreme, degree of incompetence, corruption, manipulation of facts, and among other things. They point out, for example, this is a lieutenant general, powerful army officer, but he failed over the past 4 years to eradicate ragtag militia, poorly armed, members, armed groups that were ravaging and killing, committing atrocities, against Iturians. He failed to eradicate them. Lieutenant General, given all the powers he had, given the timing he was given to execute the mission, he failed to eradicate them. They also point out that Luboya Nkashama got embroiled in corruption scandals. As soon as he assumed office, he consolidated his power and he got involved into illicit trade of minerals. This involved him collaborating with armed groups, some of the very armed groups that he was sent to eradicate. Now they became his allies, in illicit trade of gold. He came as probably a poor military officer. Now he's going as a wealthy, Congolese millionaire who it's at least not declared, but he's so wealthy that given how much he has managed to amass during his tenure as the governor of Ituri. Equally, they claim that he was manipulating facts. He pitted the armed groups against each other. He was able to define some as his allies and thereafter patriots, whereas others that, where he defined others, he branded them as, enemies of the state and partners, or if not allies of foreign states that were in place to, of course, to cause instability. And he was able to convince, the powers, his superiors in Kinshasa, that this was the fact in Ituri. And he maintained that he was indeed executing the mission and the province was on the verge of achieving peace. But that was not true. Many people are dying in spite of the fact that a lot of calls, a lot of campaigns were made to have him replaced over time. This didn't happen. So those are some of the opponents of Johnny Luboya Nkashama alleging. They state that he was a very incompetent, corrupt, and manipulative armed groups who actually distorted the facts, distorted public opinion from what was exactly happening in Ituri. Now, proponents of General Johnny Luboya Nkashama argue that his mandate, his legacy as the governor of Ituri province can be characterized with extreme level of achievement, especially in the areas of infrastructure development. But even before that, they argue that he did his best. He did try his best to eliminate his the armed groups. But also, in addition to infrastructure development and elimination of armed groups, they argue that he was able to stand against foreign influence. So that they argue that they say he, especially Uganda, that sees Ituri province as its sphere of influence. So they point out, for instance, during his tenure, his mandate, as the governor of Ituri province, Johnny Luboya Nkashama was able to achieve what many of his predecessors were not able to do. Among other things, he was able to construct road networks in the urban centers, especially in Bunia, including in tarmac. So he constructed tarmac roads, including in places or neighborhoods where many people dreamed they would never see tarmac roads during their lifetime. So he was able to do it. In addition, he renewed the airport. I think he constructed the new one, actually. If not, he rejuvenated the old one and made it more, standard and I think modern airport. So the other one was like a shack, and Johnny Luboya was able to construct a very great airport. that now stands as a jewel for Ituri's province. In addition, he was able to eradicate urban crime. Before, when he came, the city was, Bunia, especially Ituri's provincial capital, was dead. It was awash with arms, gangsterism, and there was no peace. You could get robbed in the broad daylight. But General Johnny Luboya Nkashama was able to pacify the city by eliminating all these negative forces, neutralizing them, imprisoning some. So now Bunia is a place where everyone can have a happy life, in the city. So those are some of the things that his opponents argue. In addition, actually, just not forgetting, they point out that he stood against Ugandan forces, because in 2025, I think in January, early 2025, the Ugandan government, in collaboration, in partnership with its Congolese counterpart, they extended Operation Shuja, which had been happening in Congo since 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And in early 2025, January, the Ugandan government expanded the mission by reinforcing its forces that were already there. So this time it deployed in completely different areas, where ADF, that Operation Shuja, was meant to fight. So they deployed in areas that, you didn't have ADF there. And that angered a lot of Ituri's public and Congolese, population, Congolese public, including the state of siege government, of course, presided by General Johnny Luboya Nkashama. Nkashama, he lashed at the Uganda military presence in Ituri. He was so angered by their presence, and he campaigned for their, removal. And the Ugandan military officers, especially their chief of staff, campaigned for Luboya's replacement instead. So Iturians and the proponents of General John Luboya Nkashama argue that this is a great Congolese patriot who denounced foreign influence in his country, specifically in Ituri province. So and they allege that it was Uganda that conspired with its Kampala, Uganda's President Museveni, conspired with his Congolese counterpart, President Felix Tshisekedi, to have General Johnny Luboya Nkashama, dismissed as the governor of Ituri province. And they argue that this is a very deadly precedent for Ituri. So this is a brief examination, a brief look on General Johnny Luboya Nkashama. What do you think? Tell us, what do you think was his legacy? Whom do you think he was? Was he a good guy, a bad guy? Was he corrupt, a liar? Did he create armed groups, or did he eradicate them? Depends. Just give us your answers. Thank you so much. Stay tuned with the Voice of Ituri's podcast. We'll bring you more insights about the province soon. Thank you. Stay blessed. Ciao.